Hi and welcome to Thriver TV, the place to break free from narcissistic abuse with quantum tools and understandings. And today we have a freezing cold day in Melbourne. And for those of you who don't know much about Australians, we don't do great with the cold. So when we get to about 10 degrees centigrade, to us that is freezing. So I've got the open fire on, I've got the woolly jumper on, and I'm all comfy in here while I'm working because there's no way known I'm going outside in that. So today's Thriver TV episode is one that's very, very dear to my heart that I'm really happy to share with you, because so many people say, well, what are the first steps? How do I recover? How do I get my life back to normal after being narcissistically abused? And I want to go into this in a really deep way for you so that you can understand it through my experience and the experiences that I've shared with thousands of other people in this community. Well, to start off, when narcissistic abuse happens to us, we are landed square on our bums. Life cannot go on as normal. This is the experience that we're having. And within this experience, we could be suffering panic attacks. We feel really diminished within ourselves. We find it very hard to operate. We may not be able to eat. We may not be able to sleep. Coping with the simplest tasks may feel virtually overwhelming, and it's likely we've lost a lot. We might have lost our support networks, we've lost our interests, we've lost the things in our life that normally gave us substance and purpose and joy and all the things that we loved about our life. And maybe because of what we've been going through and the state that we're in and the life that we've been involved in, people have run for the hills, they've turned their backs on us, and maybe they've even been smeared against us. We may be being lined up with attacks by people, by authorities that the narcissist has enlisted to do abuse by proxy against us. And we may feel like there's a distinct possibility of losing our kids, or maybe our kids have already been turned against us by the narcissist and the narcissist allies like the family-in-law, those people. And we may not even be able to work to be able to support ourselves anymore and look after ourselves anymore because things have got so bad. So for so many of us, the common denominator is that even though the content of what's happening can be slightly different, the context is that when you've been hit by narcissistic abuse, regardless of who the narcissist is, that you're suffering significant trauma. And in fact, the experience might feel to you as if it is totally and utterly and completely traumatic. And the thing is, no matter how bad it is when you're in there, it's actually worse when you get out. And it's a real phenomena. I call it aftershock. And I remember many years ago with my first narcissistic abuse experience that I was working with a personality disorder specialist, and even she had said to me, well, you really get it and you're really clear that this is about, you healing and whatever. And okay, well, you're clear he's abusive and that he's no good in your life, there's no hope, you'll be fine. You're going to leave him, you'll be fine. And that was so far from the truth. And what I've discovered through my own experience and working in this community for, nearly 10 years is that what happens is when we're out of the abusive situation, we're no longer in survival, we're no longer in the day-to-day, minute-to-minute fight to survive and combat and having our focus on something we've got a job to do, which is survival. What happens is when we get away from that and we're no longer experiencing repeat trauma at a constant level, is that all of the previous traumas have a chance to hit us. So it's like our being actually starts feeling and processing what happened a year ago, 10 years ago, last month, last week, yesterday, and it all hits us like an absolute freight train. So people are in the throes of their symptoms so much more when they leave or when they're discarded than when they're actually hooked up in that constant anxiety and fight with a narcissist. And nothing prepares us for that. It really, really doesn't. So when we're in this sort of situation, it's really weird for us because we're like, well, why do I feel worse? Why can't I just get it straight through my mind that this person is no good for me, that they're abusive, and why can't I just move on? And before we really discover, once we start awakening through narcissistic abuse, that this is not a normal situation in our life that we can just get up and get on with it. Because what we had been doing in the past with everything is we'd been focusing on the outside. We've been doing everything and anything in order to survive. We've been trying to get people to believe us and support us and defend us against the narcissist. And we'd been heavily focused on the narcissist, trying to make the narcissist change, trying to make them get it, what they're actually doing to us, make them realize and make them change their behavior. And maybe we, you know, in amongst all of that, also we were feeling so terrified and so broken and so devastated. You know, maybe we reached out to people outside of us. Maybe we wanted another lover, somebody who could help take the pain away. Or maybe we were seeing a therapist or, you know, somebody that we could just hope had the answer for us, somebody that could relieve us of the agony that we were going through. But what we discovered in narcissistic abuse and in the aftershock of it is that none of that was actually working. The damage wasn't getting minimalized, the things that were just exploding and falling apart in our life, and we couldn't fix it. We couldn't stop it happening, and the pain wasn't going away. And in fact, in many cases, it just seemed like it was getting worse and worse and worse. So really where all of this was leading us to is a complete and utter breakdown of ourselves, our emotional self, our mental self, our physical and our spiritual self, and a complete and utter breakdown of everything that we thought that our life was meant to be. So when that happens and we're looking at the rubble at our feet, what do we do? How do we go on? How do we get our life back? And what I'm going to explain to you initially may initially really disappoint you. But when you understand this at a deeper level, I know it will grant you incredible relief, as it did for myself. Because the truth is, you can't just decide to get over this and get on with it. And I've seen people do it. I've seen people attempt that, and you know, temporarily, momentarily, they may achieve that. But what they are really doing is kicking the can further down the road, because what is going to happen is the inevitable breakdown of themselves and their lives, which is all truly about making way for the breakthrough that their soul and life and the evolutionary purpose of them being here is all efforting to do for them. And if we don't realize it, well, then it's going to come. It's ordained. It's already a deep soul decision that we're living out. And true transcendence from narcissistic abuse is nothing short of this. It's a 180-degree turn from living life from the outside in through our false egoic structures and beliefs to changing life to an experience of living from the inside out, to really fulfill our true self, our soul purpose, why we're here, and what this game of life is all about. That's how transcendental the narcissistic abuse experience is when we realize the truth of it. And people can really struggle with this. And the people that I see struggle the most are the people that are invested in ego structures, which means being invested in doing and achieving and seeking value from the outside. And I understand this profoundly. At the start of this video, I said this is a topic very close to my heart. And the reason it's very close to my heart is because I did all of this. Absolutely, in my previous life, I was constantly attached to my value, me being valid, me being worthy to be in life is all heavily dependent on what I'm doing, what I'm achieving, and how I'm seen in the world with my achievements. And people will only value me and love me if I'm achieving. Those were huge belief systems that I was carrying in my body and I was playing out. And what happened in narcissistic abuse for me was I got smashed with those beliefs. I got really, really smashed to show me the falseness of those beliefs and how I needed to experience that was everything needed to be stripped away from me, everything I'd achieved. So I was just left with myself. So those props, those false sources to my own value had to be dismantled, and they were incredibly dismantled. And I was very stubborn. Before I had my complete psychotic adrenal breakdown, what I would do if I was triggered into any fearful young wounded parts of myself, I would self-medicate with work. I would self-medicate with achievement and accomplishment. That was my go-to. And through narcissistic abuse, everything I'd achieved and every structure that I had outside of myself as that choice of self-medication was completely torn away from me. So the only thing that was left there, and thank goodness that happened to me, because it was this continual, my life was this continual of I'm only as good as my last achievement. So I was constantly in anxiety and depression, apart from those little fleeting hits of achievement. So thank goodness all of that, you know, being face to face with my greatest fear that I'm not valuable, I'm not worthy because I'm no longer achieving, that all came to life, incredible technicolor life. And this is what's happening with all of us through narcissistic abuse. So, you know, up until that time in my life, that question so many people ask, well, you know, how do I get on with it? I'd always got on with it. Always got up and got on with it, like most great codependents do. We're very, very good at being able to get up and get on with it. We're used to sourcing our sense of fullness and wholeness from outside of ourselves, so that's what we innately, automatically do. And with narcissistic abuse, we actually hit a point where the wounds are so severe that there's really nowhere else to go except be with our tortured inner being. And that's exactly where I ended up, with my tortured inner being, because there was no nothing outside of me to grab onto. And after the breakdown, I had no mental, physical, spiritual ability on any level to go for anything outside of myself. So I was left with me and me only. And this is where we make the most incredibly important decision of our entire life. And that decision is I'm going to go inside, I'm going to self-partner, I'm going to meet me, and I'm going to love, and I'm going to heal me, and I'm going to dismantle all of my old traumas and release them, and I'm going to up-level them into beliefs that do serve me. So this was the beginning of the journey for me of establishing within my inner being that my worth and my value has nothing to do with achievements. They're just icing on a cake. That I'm actually valuable and worthy and lovable simply because I exist. And this relationship with myself and my higher power and all of life is the knowing that I am adored beyond measure simply because I exist. I'm as worthy as anybody to be here. And that changed and created an incredible, profound journey for me, the changing of those beliefs. That was to grant me a platform of the greatest relief and the greatest joy and the greatest healing, and the freedom to be living no longer conditionally reliant on achievement. I'm so grateful for it. I'm grateful for it every day. So what I see all the time is with people struggling with recovery is exactly what I used to do. The people that are not getting it, that are not realizing the message of what this was entirely all about, to stop sourcing our life from the outside and to stop having precarious structures and people as false sources that we believe are giving us our love and our worth and our value, and to have this hiatus time where we deeply come inside to self-partner and do the work in our bodies, stop trying to beat it cognitively, logically, come inside and do the soul work in our emotional subconscious within our body, like a race car that's been damaged and it comes into the pits, or even more profoundly the garage, and it ends up with a new motor and new body and a new paint job, and it gets out on a racetrack shiny and brand new, and it is more powerful, more effective than what it ever was even before it had the crash. And another analogy I like to use, it's like a bird that's broken its wings and it's gone into a hospital and it's had its wings have mended and it's been loved and healed back to health. And then its wings are twice as strong as what they ever were before they were broken. And this bird is no longer just flying. This bird can soar now, can soar in ways that it never did before the accident. This is exactly true in regard to narcissistic abuse. This is exactly what thriving is all about. And for A-type personalities and people that are doers and people that have believed that their survival, their worth, their value is all about achieving. Yes, we've still got to put food on the table and have a roof over our head, and I achieved that in my recovery. But what I absolutely did is I said, okay, I'm going to ask for help. I'm going to ask for support. I'm going to, just do in the simplest ways what I can do to have my survival needs covered. And then what I'm going to do is I am going to devote and dedicate to myself as my own mission to do this healing in my trauma body inside me that I've never done before, that I've been running from my entire life, that a narcissist brought to me in such massive technicolor that there's nowhere to run and hide anymore apart from to do this work. And that's exactly the quickest, simplest, most direct way to get out of this and get life back to normal. But this is so much more than about getting life back to normal. Who wants normal? Who wants mere survival? Who wants to even be operating at the level that we were before narcissistic abuse? Who wants that? I didn't want that. And I know so many people in this community don't want that. I wanted to soar. And that's exactly what thriving after narcissistic abuse is all about, when we do the work properly in our body and we start up-leveling and we start becoming who we really are. Not a person who was a culmination of the traumas we'd had since childhood and our limiting, painful, self-defeating beliefs. When they go, that's when life really begins. And narcissistic abuse is the catalyst that creates that for so many people. And I've seen so many people in this community, thousands upon thousands, who within months, their lives are unrecognizable. Even people that are still going through throes of custody and property settlements and things like that. And the reason is because they're using super tools on their subconscious. They're up leveling. They're in the garage, they're in the bird hospital, they're doing the work. So I'd love you to join me, and I hope this really inspires you to say, I got to stop being so hard on myself and trying to get out there and succeed and get back all the money I lost and all the things that happened to me. The most important thing you can ever get is yourself back. And when you get yourself back, I promise you, the levels you're living at will be nothing in compared to the ones that you can look forward to. So please join me in this experience by signing up to my free resources, and also make sure that you come into my next free webinar group, because that's where we really get down to how to do this. So that's it from me, and as always, keep smiling, keep healing, keep thriving, because there's nothing else to do. Lots of love. Bye-bye.